Hey, everybody, and good Wednesday evening to most of you, wherever it is that you're joining from. Evening, afternoon, maybe some of you, it's already what, Thursday, Friday? I don't know, wherever it is that you're joining us. Thank you so much for being here with us today on this very special night. We're going to have a great conversation. We have an amazing, amazing, and wonderful guest. And I'm just really excited that today we will be talking about one of my favorite things. And something that I'm currently just enjoying. And I know our guest Shannon, she's going to explain a little bit more about her, journey as well with creativity and amplifying creativity. So thank you so much for joining us today, Shannon. How are you doing this evening?
Hey, I am thriving. Anytime I get to come and talk with you is a great time. And I see some really awesome humans in the chat. And so I think we're going to have a good time tonight. And I hope they will also contribute to the conversation as we go. But I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. It's Wednesday.
Awesome. That is great. Yeah, we've got some great, great people joining us. We've got Nikki. Hey, my friend Nikki, thank you so much for joining. Stickers are on their way. All right. We've got Bonnie. We've got Mrs. Lim, who's joining us. She's currently on the treadmill and looking to get inspired by both of us. And of course, we've got Rick. So,
Hey,
Rick, thank you
hey.
for joining us. Maybe Cora might make an appearance maybe in a while or something. So we'll see how that goes. But Shannon, again, I'm just excited. Today we're talking about one of my favorite topics. I know it's one of your favorite topics. And between you and I, talking about this and saying, hey, you know what? Wouldn't this be a good idea for a show that we can go ahead and do and talk about amplifying creativity? And then just to have you here today, I'm just really thrilled. So, for those that are joining us either on YouTube or are going to listen to the replay later, can you just tell our audience members, again, just introduce yourself one more time and then just your
Sure.
context and education?
I would love to. So I'm Shannon Moore. I'm from Central California, pretty much right smack dab in the middle of the state, and I am a high school English slash speech teacher. I'm also a site technology coach. Lots of roles at my job, and really just a passionate educator who's really eager to see kind of the face of education continue to ride this wave of transformation, and hopefully that means much more creativity, innovation, and all good things. So I'm also one of the 3 caffeinated coaches. We just started a podcast this year, so you can find us on Twitter at _3 CCS, and we'd love to connect with you guys there. And that's me in a nutshell. Oh, I'm a cat mom and a wife as well.
There you go. And I did pop that
Thank
link in
you.
the chat for the 3CC's website. Go check out their podcast, guys. They are amazing. They definitely
Thank you.
bring it. They definitely bring it. They bring it. They bring it. And it's just with just powerful podcasts that they're sharing. They're both, well, all 3 of them. Georgina, Becky, and of course Shannon, they're all just amazing coaches, amazing motivators, have great experience, and so please make sure you check them out as well. So Shannon, let's talk a little bit about creativity. I know that both
All
you
right.
and I we are Adobe Educative educators, level 1, level 2, and I've been on this creative journey that pretty much what my one word for 2021 was, it was to create.
Yeah.
And boy, has it been just an amazing, amazing year. But like I said, I always give credit where credit is due. And I've always said, people like yourself, people like Georgina,
Yeah.
people like Al Thomas, Claudio Zavala, and all those amazing creatives that are out there have inspired me. So now that I have you on here on the show, let's just go ahead and start off with our first question.
All right.
What is creativity to you?
All right. Well, let me preface my answer by saying this. This is a conversation that I've been waiting to have with someone for quite a while now, because I think that it is time for us to take the meaning of creativity and really turn it on its head. So many people think about creativity and they think you need to be an artist or, into photography or doing something with some sort of creative medium in that regard. And to be honest with you, yes, of course, those people are creative, and that is an exemplification of creativity. But creativity means so much more to me than that. Creativity means, you know, coming up with innovative ideas. It could happen in a variety of different kind of capacities. For example, I wouldn't say that I'm the best artist in the world, to be honest. I doodle here and there. I sketch note and such, but I'm not amazing yet. I'm working at it. But I'll tell you what I am pretty proud of in regards to creativity in me. I think I'm a pretty creative lesson planner. So, as an educator, I have the opportunity to integrate creativity into my lesson plans. And not only does it allow the students to have a new approach or a novel approach to the concepts that we're discussing or are dealing with that day in class, but also it gives students the capacity to really stretch themselves and apply new ideas and new way of thinking to the concepts being discussed. And I think that is at the essence of creativity. Taking wherever you're at, taking kind of the content that you have, the options that are in front of you, whatever it may be, and applying like a new way to see it, or developing a way to exemplify it in a new way, digging in. Because I'll tell you what, I teach a demographic of students who aren't the most creative humans, or at least wouldn't label themselves super creative. They like structure, they like limitations. And when you ask them to think outside the box, that's a little bit overwhelming for them. And to be honest, I told them from the beginning, hey, you're joining me on this creativity journey this year. We get to take risks in the classroom right now because nothing is going the way it's supposed to. And so let's do this together. And you'd be amazed at kind of pushing them, giving them that little push, how much of their creativity is actually rising to the surface. And it's really awesome to see that. And then ultimately it encourages confidence and engagement. And so creativity is different for every different person. And I think that is key.
Oh, I love that. And you're absolutely right, and I noticed like Nikki, for example, she's saying here, we've all have to be redefining creativity this year from the way that we share lessons, the way that, like you said, lesson planning, creating the virtual environment for your students. All of that, we've definitely had to be thinking outside the box, being outside of the classroom, being outside of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
But like you said, also in many ways, a lot of people don't see that as creativity. Oftentimes it's, well, you have to be an artist, you have to paint, you have to do watercolors, you have to sketch, you have to do all of that. But like Steph says, it's something that it's about taking risks and just going out there and putting yourself out there. And I think that that is something that I know that I've been learning this year, and it's been a little bit more than a year, ever since pretty much Al Thomas was on the show. And I text Al like every once in a while just to keep telling him thank you and all that stuff, and of course with Claudio and with
Right.
you, and so it's just been awesome. But uh like you said, this does not have to be just pencil to paper, watercolor to canvas. It could be many things to different people. Everybody has a sense of creativity, but
Yeah.
and of course it's different for every single one of us. So I love that, and we're getting a lot of love here for you, Shannon. We've got Steph Rothstein who's here. Abid just joined us from across the pond. I know for Abid it must be like 1 a.m. or close to
So
2 a.m. over
early.
there. We've got Mel from Colombia that's joining us, Bonnie, of course. So thank you so much for being here. So Shannon, let's talk a little bit about inspiration.
Yeah.
Now,
Sure.
of course, you mentioned, your lesson planning. You dabble too, and a little bit, like you said, you doodle, you do some art with some apps. But where let's talk about personal and professional. As far as personal creative inspiration, how do you draw that? What who do you look up to, or what do you do to prepare for that?
Yeah. So this has been a journey. If you know me, which a lot of the people in the chat do, but there's some that don't, I'm like a super pragmatic human, very practical and logical. And so I think maybe I draw inspiration from different things than maybe people who maybe are more emotionally driven, right? I'm not the type that like can listen to music and get inspiration from that, or watch a movie, or look at a painting, or even I don't have a super vivid imagination, if I'm being honest with you. So my inspiration is largely drawn from the connections that I make with people. I I needed to creativity was almost like a necessity for me. When the pandemic came around and I started to like think about my classroom practice and what that was going to look like, I was lost. I had no idea, right? And so I gave myself a space to say it's time to take some risks. It's time to figure this out. And so I just dove headfirst into all of the creative communities I could. Twitter obviously is full of innovative and creative humans, and so kind of making those connections has been the way in which I'm inspired. And um, my creativity journey elevated once I learned about Adobe and all that they had to offer. I did the Adobe Level 1 Creative Educator platform and loved it, fell in love, was like, oh my gosh, there's this whole education exchange that exists out there. How do people not know about this? I have to let people know, right? And then from there, I ended up meeting Georgina Dean, which you mentioned earlier. And I would say that she is one of my mentors, gives me creative inspiration. Quickly did Adobe Creative Level 2 when it came out, and then just recently became an Adobe education leader. So really, my inspiration has kind of been derived from those connections that I've made. Most of what I create or develop is usually kind of inspired by conversations that I have. People have labeled me as a connector. I don't want to sound arrogant saying that, but truly the way in which I see the world is through the lens of those connections. I'm able to understand how life works. I'm able to feed into, since I am such a practical, logical human, empathy is really hard for me. So through those connections, I'm able to like develop these moments of clarity concerning experiences in my journey and how things should go. And so personally, I would say the people that I've met. And to be honest with you, my husband is the most creative human I've ever met in my life. And so daily, he reminds me when I'm feeling not good enough, or I'm feeling like it's not creative enough, or I'm not taking enough creative risks. He's always quick to remind me and bring up all of the ways in which I am. And so he keeps me going. He keeps me inspired. We have a lot of creative conversations. We don't want kids. And so a lot of our hanging out, which people find weird, is play. Like we've created puppet shows, and we've created, like, we like to go to the swap meets on like pre-pandemic and get toys and create scenes across our home. And that's probably weird and quirky, but I never said I wasn't. So there you go. But yeah, he's incredibly creative and inspires me on the daily too.
Oh, I love that. It's like for my wife and I, it's trips to Home Depot and
Yeah,
working on our house projects and everything like that. That's the one thing that we love. That's the way we get creative too as
I
well.
like it.
But it's awesome, like you said, like you and your husband, you do play. My wife and I, we get handy with it.
Yep, I love it.
So I mean, it's just really great that everybody has their own way of creating. And
Yeah.
as far as like everybody mentioning the connector, you really are. And from the first time that I met you in global GEG staff room, you came in very quiet and you were just kind of getting to know everybody. But then all of a sudden, I just saw you transform into just, I mean, or not really transform, you were already that, but really just started to get to know you more. And all of a sudden I was like, wow, and just to see all that you have been able to do and be able to see that's definitely helped motivate me. And it has helped to motivate so many others that are right now joining us in the chat, aside from the many and countless other people that are either on Twitterverse or Facebook groups or education groups because of the stuff that you've done. So that kind of brings me to, I guess, maybe the next question or the next comment. Like, I know that we can be our worst critics in that sense, but I love that your husband, although you may be working on a project and you're like, no, this just doesn't look quite right, but he's seen it through a different lens, and he's actually seen just how amazing it really is. And we may not see that because to us we have such high expectations of what we need to do or what it needs to look like, or we may be comparing ourselves to others, which is, the
Yeah.
imposter syndrome and all of
Right.
that kicks in. And but I love that you have your loving husband that says, hey, this is great, put it out there, and it really does help to have that support. So I
Yeah.
mean, I'm just thankful for him, because we definitely need more of Shannon's creative
Thank
juices
you.
and
I'm thankful
creative
for him too.
nuggets, so it's really exciting.
Yeah.
So yeah, so anyway, so let's see if we've got some questions here. Yeah, definitely Mel saying, connect with Shannon, you get connected with. And I think like with Shannon, it's like it's gonna be like, instead of like 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon, it's like maybe half a degree to Kevin Bacon if you connect with Shannon, for
No
sure.
way. No. It's
Oh my
about people,
goodness.
right? It's
It
about
is.
humans.
And
Why
that's what I
why else are we
love.
doing this?
Exactly. It's just making those connections. And that's the whole point of me doing this show and kind of creating this show. And here's the funny part, Shannon. I know we were talking earlier, and about creators. I never saw myself as a creator, because to me that word had that connotation of, well, you must be an artist, you have to draw, you have to
Yeah.
be a graphic designer. I'm just putting a podcast together. And then until somebody, I think it was Chris Nessie, who
Mhm.
said, "No, you are a creator. You're this is a podcast you're creating." And then I was like, "Oh." And then once I kind of started owning that, I'm like, "Hey, this is creativity. This is all part of that process, and in a way to amplify my creativity and share with others." And now I get to learn and have just amazing guests such
Yeah.
as yourself, and that's something that is really, really amazing. So I'm excited
Well,
about that.
and beyond just the podcast funds, like you're doing this daily creative endeavor, right? You're on what,
Yeah.
day like 34,
Today's
30,
day 33, day 33.
33. And
Yeah,
it's a big
so
deal. And it proves one thing. Here's the thing. Let me tell you this before we continue to our next question. Let me explain. Let's talk about why I'm inspired by fonts. Okay. Um, so many people, and this is a realization I'm coming to right now in just life, right? So many people, especially educators, when they get scared, when they get uncomfortable, when there's any level of discomfort that they feel is like unsurmountable, we have so many educators who are just sitting back, right? And here's the thing, let me just preface, I love everybody and I know education is hard, okay? I get that. And so if this comes off as like, wow, that's really callous, I'm sorry, that's not my intention. But like so many educators, when they find those moments of just like stuck, they just remain stuck. Because I think so many people are waiting to be fed. They're consumers because that's all they've had to do for so long. But now we've all been challenged, right? We've all been challenged with this reality that we don't have all the answers. And to be honest, we're all in the same boat. Like it's we can't look to our inspirations anymore and say, well, how are they doing it? I'll just emulate that, right? Because everybody's figuring it out. And so what you're doing with your creative like endeavor and diving into all of the different, platforms and showing and sharing with the world, that is what we need more of. And that is why you're inspiring. Because what you've chosen to do is you've chosen to say, I don't know, but I want to. And so I'm going to go ahead and watch the YouTube videos. And even though it's not maybe the best thing I've ever done, I'm going to try and I'm going to share and we'll get some feedback and then we'll do a new iteration and we're going to keep doing because if I don't pursue, if I don't try, if I don't reach out and figure it out myself, then I stay stuck and I don't have the knowledge and I'm not learning and I'm not growing at that point. And so I just really admire you for saying that this is important to me. I've made a commitment to creation and I'm going to do it whatever it takes. I think that's awesome.
wow. Well, thank you, Shannon. I really appreciate it. Like, it is, it just came to me like that 33 days ago, when I said, you know what, I'm going to create something new every single day. So like you said, just really pushing myself using, the Adobe suite, finding other apps, other things, videos, and so on. Because just like, and it always resonates. And it's so funny, it always comes back to that, I think, episode, I don't even remember, with Al Thomas. But when he said, and it just really resonated with me, that he said, everybody else is watching you. They're waiting for you to do that one little thing that can spark or change their direction in a positive
Yep.
way and inspire them. And really, it is a journey just to simply inspire other people. And like you said, if I can do it, I mean, I'm hoping that it just sparks that interest and say, hey, you know what, I can do it. I mean, and like you said, if I don't know how, I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to roll with it and keep learning.
Yep.
And so today was day 33. Today is show 60 of the
Yeah.
podcast. So it's just been just an amazing, amazing creative journey. And more than anything, that I appreciate the most is just being able to share it with such wonderful people
Yeah.
that understand that what we're doing is not just, it's not just for us. We want to change the world. This conversation is also just how can we change the world through
Yeah.
creativity and amplifying that, and hopefully people get that message today, that you don't have to be the best artist. It's just a matter of figuring it out, going with it, rolling with it, and you're learning. So you're
Yep.
learning all of that. So thank you, appreciate it. So let's talk a little bit about creativity. And this question, I want to get your opinion on this,
Yeah.
or your answer. Do you think that creativity is part of human nature, or is it something that must be nurtured and learned?
Hmm. I think that it is both. I think that some people are naturally creative. I think some people can take anything and without like even trying, it's just like they create this amazing thing, right? Just the way that their brain is made up. I'm not like that, and so I think that my creativity has to be nurtured, and it is a process. And just the other day, I was on my iPad just kind of sketching to kind of debrief from the day, and um, I looked back. I started with pencil and paper. Okay, like before I got my iPad, it was just sketching on pencil and paper, and then I started to look at my growth in that regard. And when we're talking creativity right now, we're talking like art, and I've grown tremendously. Like, but it's taken time, and it's taken me watching YouTube videos, and it's taken me
Mhm.
watching countless Behance live streams, which I love, to watch people and see the way in which their own process, and then trying something, seeing if it works. If it doesn't, kind of tweaking it to fit my own artistry. And so I think personally, my creativity is something that has to be nurtured and learned. But I think that there are definitely individuals out there who are just incredibly creative, either in one capacity or another, right? And through art or photography or digital imagery or whatever it may be. I'm curious, what do you think?
Well, for me, I agree with you. I think I'm on the same boat that you are. Growing up, and I always tell the story too. I think growing up, I was the only kid that didn't make it to choir. The only kid in the whole school, like in my grade level, I was the only kid that never made it to choir. I guess I just couldn't even hold a note, or something. But I became the assistant. But I got all the cool parts. I ended up being like the lead in a lot of the plays
Oh,
and stuff like that, because I couldn't sing, but they needed somebody to do like the talking and stuff. So
nice.
I was cool with that. But that haunted me for a while, because sometimes, things like that do bother you. Then later on, when I got into my late 20s, I actually started taking voice lessons because I
Nice.
wanted to learn how to sing. So for me, it ended up being kind of like that motivation where my elementary teacher said, no, like you're not good enough for choir. But then I said, you
Yeah.
know what? Even though I was in band in high school for 4 years, and I played multiple instruments, that little not being able to sing really got to me. So I took
Yeah.
voice lessons and I improved on that. So it's something that I had to learn, I had to nurture, I had to practice, and so on. And so it's the same thing now with the creative component, where um, I think for me, it was just more like I'm a little bit more outgoing, maybe sometimes than most people, in putting myself out there. So I don't mind taking the risk.
Mhm.
But there did come a point where somebody made a comment too, where it's like, oh, you're just putting up the same picture over and over and over again. But I said, but yeah, it's the same picture. But I mean, I changed this and I changed this and then made this filter and I added this to it and so on. But I don't know, maybe in their mind they just didn't understand, they just saw it
Yeah.
as it's the same picture. So then what I went ahead and did is I actually made a sticker of that
Right
picture.
on.
And so these are stickers that sometimes I'll pass out, and when I see
Love it.
this, it reminds me of yeah, it may be the same picture to you, but it's not to me, and somebody else may see it differently.
Right.
So I think a lot of it too just comes from that motivation. And now with this, daily creation, it's just been people that have inspired me, like Georgina. Like when I saw her doing her stuff like with fresco and then started seeing
Yeah.
you, I was like, hey, I want to learn how to do this. I want to learn how to do this. And then so I said, in order to get better, I need a practice.
Yeah.
So, but then that took me down into this rabbit hole of, you know what? Let me challenge myself. And I'm one of those, like, I mean, if it wasn't for my wife, like, just to kinda reel me in a bit, like, she supports me in
Mhm.
everything, but sometimes she's like, "You gotta just, instead of being at 12x, bring it back to 10x." But
Yeah.
I end up challenging myself and putting myself in these situations, but in 33 days, and it's like, Steph said, it's you're exercising that creative muscle.
It really is.
And like Claudio, when he was here on the show, like he explained it perfectly. When you work out, you get some slight micro fissures, within your muscles. It starts kind of tearing a little bit, and you start building that muscle.
Yeah.
And now, day 33, I go back, and this is what I love, that I'm documenting this because you get to see the growth, where you
Absolutely.
were and where you're at. And then through that process, hopefully inspiring others to say, hey, you know what? That guy Fonz, or hey, you know what? Shannon, I saw her do this. Let me try. And then
Yeah.
maybe they fall into just that creative journey or their own process of nurturing and learning their own creativity and
Absolutely.
amplifying it. And that's what excites me the most. That's what really gets me pumped up. Just being able to make that connection with somebody, and then just see them just spread their wings and fly and take off on
Absolutely.
their own creative journey. So I
I
think that
mean,
was just a
that's
really long answer, but
no,
that's
it's
the way I
great. I mean,
feel.
I think that's why we're in education, right? Because those
Yeah.
moments, I think if you ask any educator in their classroom, what are your favorite moments? I think they would say the moment where the kid finally gets it, right? The light bulb turns on and you watch this kid toil and strive for something and the process is painful, which it is the same thing with this creative and journey, right? But eventually that seedling like breaks ground and touches light and then it becomes this beautiful thing. And you know what, it could be the smallest of little things. I So Mel is in the chat and Mel and I talk daily, and Mel is constantly like, you're excited about a lot of things, because I'm like, that's so exciting or
Mm.
awesome, especially when we talk about food. I get really excited about that. But like, what are we without excitement? What is life without excitement? And I think that those moments that you're talking about, the excited moments, the ones where you see everything come together, um, those are the moments we have to hold on to. And I love that you're documenting your journey, because you're going to be able to look back. And the same is true with our students. I listened to a webinar today about this idea of personalized learning, and so many teachers are so focused on the numbers, right? They give the kids a test and they want to watch the progression of data show that there's growth. But what if you recorded the student, right? Like think about a foreign language or a world language class, right? And from day one till day 30, the kid got on and was recording themselves on, like I say, a Flipgrid or something every day. Imagine then going back and compiling all that together and watching the progression of growth. you know that's what matters, and that's what we get to celebrate. And I think that the process is often more important than the product.
Oh, I love that. And I agree with you on that. That documentation process. So kind of goes back to just, having portfolios and live
Yeah.
artifacts, and I think that that is something that is a creative way to really document this, but everything like you said is just numbers and data driven, but although we have a lot of students that aren't great test takers at all
Yeah.
whatsoever, but if you give them a different means of showing you their learning, oh my goodness, they can take off and run circles, around you with that
Yeah.
content that they learned because they do it in such an amazing way. But that's one of those things that we also, and I'm glad you brought that up because it sparked that memory when Tisha Poncio was on the show. We started talking about a little bit about creativity, and she started mentioning and talking that about, when she was talking to her high school students, and actually asked you. So it's like, so by like what age do you think that you kind of lost a little bit interest in creativity and things of that sort? And a lot of them said like in elementary, like about third, fourth grade. And well,
Yeah.
here in Texas, third and fourth grade, that's when standardized testing starts.
Yeah.
So it's like that you don't have, in elementary, you've got the crayons, you're creating, you're building, you're having fun, you're doing all of that. But now once you get there, it's like worksheet, worksheet,
Yeah.
worksheet, and goes back to what you mentioned earlier. Then when you have students and you want them to think outside the box, it's very hard for them
Yeah.
because if it's not A, B, C, D, then they're like, whoa, wait a minute, like
Right.
what do you mean? What do I do?
Right.
And that's scary. That really scares me. So I think this in what I'm doing too in my mind was if I can help somebody see it and maybe relate it to teachers and tell teachers like, look, you can be creative. How
Yeah.
about maybe trying some of this on your spare time, learning a new skill, just learning something easy, through an app. And then I was thinking, and then they make that connection, and then they can start bringing that into the classroom. and
Absolutely.
and that's what I think. At least in a perfect world, I would love to think that a teacher would say, hey, let me try this, and then wow, let me introduce this creativity into the classroom and tie it into the lessons. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Steph said we're often our own limiters, right? And I think that's so true.
Mhm.
And you reinforce that idea, talking about the students and them, losing that desire for creativity. And I think that yes, we do limit ourselves by our own limitations, but imagine what happens if we just say, yes, I can, right? And daily take steps, small baby steps, even to kind of break free of that. I think that the world can be beautiful. Like educators have to stop saying like throwing out the buzzwords, right? Like creation over consumption. That's such a great idea. Great. Yeah. Well, let's freaking do it then, right? Like let's
Yeah.
just stop talking about it and let's actually try. What's going to happen? Well, there's two options. You'll be successful or you'll fail at it. Cool in both regards, right? Because if you're successful, great. If you fail, cool. You have another opportunity for reflection and reiteration. So like let's just do it. Let's just stop buzzwording the world of education and just start trying. Just start doing it. It starts one decision to take one step on one day to just try
Mhm.
and take the risk.
Yeah, and that's what it is, risk. And I think too that that ties into vulnerability. I think oftentimes teachers, they're scared. They're scared to fail. They're because
Yeah,
and then here, when students fail, they're looked down upon. And then of course, if a teacher fails or doesn't have an answer, they feel like a failure. But it's part of learning. I mean, that's the
right.
way that you learn, and it's all in how you frame it. Like, how do you come up from this? Like, man, there's been countless times in my career that I haven't had the answer like we talked about earlier,
Yeah,
but it didn't make me any less of a teacher, didn't make me any less of a guide, somebody that can just help guide my students and steer them into the right direction, and then
right,
taking part of the learning process with them, helped me become a better teacher as well. So I agree. I think it's just go for it. Take the risk. What's the worst that can happen? You're going to learn. We're all going to
right,
learn, and we're all going to learn from it. So yeah.
right.
So, how about this, Shannon? What are some ways that you get into your creative zone?
This one's an interesting question. Um, I think probably for me, it is a this is so weird. My like sparks of creativity happen in the shower. So I get a lot of my ideas in the shower. In fact, Becky can attest to this. I for podcasting, I have a notepad, a waterproof notepad in my shower that I purchased off Amazon. Yes, they do exist. And I scribble my ideas. And those are the moments I think when I get my most like get into my have the most sparks. Um, the problem is that's usually in the morning before work, and so that I have to go to work. But um, I think for me, largely it is time alone. I'm an outgoing human. I wouldn't consider myself an extrovert. I would actually consider myself an introvert. And so, I need to, people think I'm super outgoing because I'm like vibrant and loud most of the time, but like I really need to recharge my batteries. And my creative zone exists in a space when I'm by myself, and I can reflect. I'm a questioner of the world as well. And so when I want to be creative or really push myself, I'll sit with something and just question, because I can't make sense of the world unless I do that. And I can't make sense of where my brain is going if I don't. And I mentioned this on a podcast. Sometimes you can't do it alone. And so I'll like sneak attack question people just to kind of get their perspective, to either reinforce or reject my own kind of perspective, and then from there I can then take it and channel it and put it into action.
Nice.
What about you?
Abbott's like, "Hey, I need a shower pad too."
It's the best thing ever, man. It's so great, and it's wonderful. I love it.
That is awesome. Well, like for me, my process is pretty just I don't know, it's just based on how I feel that day, like, what do I wanna use? Like, and that kind of, makes me push myself, I guess, a little bit more. Like I mentioned, the other day, I don't know who I was having the conversation with, but I said, everything that you see is on my tech teacher account and on YouTube channel for my creative journey, everything is of that day. I don't pre-record anything. I don't preload anything. I don't do any of that. Like I love the spontaneity of
Yeah.
it. And so oftentimes it happens early in the mornings. I'm here in morning. My wife and I are having coffee. I'm getting ready for work, and I'll get an idea either that right then and there or on the drive to work, and I just kind of start thinking about it a little bit more and so on. And then when I get the time to do it, I do it. Usually it's when I get home. I'm already ready to go with the idea, but it does take that time because sometimes I'm like, well, and sometimes I'm like one of those that, well, I've already done 3 videos, just Photoshop. Let me do something different in Illustrator, or let me do something different. But it's just spontaneous. Like
Yeah.
I'm one of those that it can go anywhere at any time, and sometimes it can get crazy, and sometimes that's where I don't know, just that risk, and then the reward when you get to see what you've done
Yeah.
without maybe even knowing that platform at all. You don't know it, you've never done this, but the fact that you spend and invested time in watching a YouTube video, and then you're trying to, do the same thing that they're doing and actually learning, go through the steps. And then I'm like, wow, like I can't believe I did this. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, I can mix this with that, and then I can put
Absolutely.
this, and then you get those ideas. But for me, I'm one of those that if you put me on the spot, like boom, let's go, let's do it. We'll figure out a way and find a creative way of doing it. But again, just very spontaneous. And
Yes.
I don't do lists, which
Mm,
I know sometimes can be that that can sometimes be my downfall at list, but
sure.
I'm just very, very just on the fly, on the go, whatever comes my way. It's just all about improvising, adapting, and overcoming.
I
So
love that. I love that.
yeah,
I'm not, I mean, I am spontaneous in a lot of ways, but I'm also very methodical. In fact, Georgina just joined, and
yeah.
I think she would describe herself as a spontaneous creator. She gets sparks and she runs, and it takes me a minute or two to really kind of develop. So you guys are kindred in that way. Another way that I think that my sparks happen is through collaborative processing. Man, if you get me in a room with people who are sparky as well, and creative and innovative and desiring, even if they just want to desire to have a conversation about something that I'm passionate about, it's all over. Like, it's amazing the synapses that fire during that time, right? Because being surrounded with people that you're passionate, you're all pursuing like the same passion, it's just something so special. And
It
those are the
really
moments I love.
It really is. Like, especially like right now, like I'm having this conversation with you, which is a conversation that I've been wanting to have for a
Yeah.
long time. It just really excites me. And then obviously seeing all our friends here that are creatives in their own way. And of course,
Absolutely.
we've collaborated with all of them pretty much that are
Yeah,
here, and it's just great to see things through a different lens and finding new ideas, new ways. And I think again, just going back to that too, is one of the things that I've learned through 2021 is to be a little bit more mindful and actually seeing things through a different lens.
I love
And
that.
that has really helped my creative process a lot more, and just really dive in a little bit more into that. And that's been great. And it's all been because of, like you said, you're hanging around with people that are like minded, people that inspire, that motivate, that are go getters. And it really rubs off. And it
It
really,
does.
yeah. And so it's amazing. So look at that, man. A lot of love in the chat right now going on. We've got some snackcidents that occurred.
Yeah, I love that sneak attack became snack attack. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
See, there you go, spark, right?
Yeah, there you go. Snackcidents. We got Georgina Lens equals love that font. Yep, Lens. Georgina, thank you. Georgina, we've been talking you up, and thank you so much for joining, this morning all the way from Amman, Jordan. And just showing some love and sharing some love with you because of your creative process and how much of a motivator, connector, creator that you are. And you've definitely helped spark and ignite that creativity flame in a lot of us. And so it's just been great to be able to learn from you. And then everybody's part of this journey together. So that's been great. And of course, it's just a lot of love. Becky, everybody here, thank you so much for joining us. It really means a lot.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more here as far as
Yep.
sharing your work, Shannon. Like we know, like for myself, I put myself out there like more. I don't know. I'm just one of those, like, I don't know. I really don't care. I just put myself out there,
You
whatever it
do.
is, whether it's a podcast, whether it's this, and that's just me by nature. But how about yourself? Like, are you one of those? Do you find yourself, do you put your work out there, or is it mainly more just for yourself, your own growth process, something personal? What? Tell us a little bit about that.
Um, no, I do not share very often, and that's not a. It's not like a deliberate, thoughtful choice. Like, oh, it's my art. I need to hold on to it. It's an imposter syndrome choice. Like um, I sit here and I say like, let's do creative things. Let's be bold. Let's take risks. And I do. In my spaces, I definitely say that I take risks. I don't hold back in that regard. And I believe wholeheartedly that sharing is caring and that we should. Um, but here's where I struggle. I struggle with two things. One, I struggle with not being good enough. Um, and that kind of whether it's conscious or subconscious, that limits me from sharing. And two, i I still haven't figured out that fine line of my spaces, which is usually social media where you share, that fine line of here is me versus let's use that space to empower others. And so I struggle with that. I know that sharing is important, and it's important, like you mentioned. If it could spark something in someone else, that's really important. But um, I also don't really like to be the center of attention, and so sometimes I get a little nervous in that regard as well. And so I'd like to share more. Mel actually just put in the chat you shared recently. She's like the number one person who constantly tells me to share. And I admire her because she shares everything on Twitter, like all of the cool things that she's doing. And I'm always really, really, really kind of proud to know her and everything that she's doing because she's rocking it. But recently, I attended Codebreaker, the Power Summit this weekend. And one of the presenters talked about finding your better, right? Brave better. And that got me thinking a lot about myself as an educator and as a human, and what is it that I want to do? What is my better? So I'm on this new journey of figuring out my better. And in that, I've committed to being more open about what's going on in my classroom and in my life. And so little by little, even though I don't want to, I'm starting to share a little more within the last few days. But it makes me super uncomfortable. So
But hey, you know what? That's great though. It's refreshingly honest, and that's what I love about you, Shannon. That you are just so honest and so upfront about it. And not a lot of people would say, "Well, no, I just don't want to share it." But it's there's nothing wrong with being honest. And but I'm glad that you said you're gonna try. It's gonna be something different, getting you out of your comfort zone. You're taking that risk, and for myself, I think it's just one of those things where I'm just like, let me put it out there
I think
and
it's
let me
great.
share. And I don't know what it is, and it really, like you said, it's I hope I don't come off like, because I don't want to come off like, oh man, look at this guy, he's just always on and
Never.
everything. I was like, no, it's like, check it out, like I learned something new. Like it's just me being excited about sharing something new that I learned. And
Yeah,
then just like I said, starting that spark. And now recently, just and I'm still learning. Like I've been actually watching videos on how to up my Instagram game, learning
nice.
how to do better stories, better. Did
Love
you
it.
see? And you commented on my post
I
today. Did
did.
you
I
see
liked
that?
it.
Like, take a little
Mm-hmm.
snapshot on your daily
It was clever.
affirmation. I was like, this is pretty cool, So just little ways and different ways of just engaging people and just sharing some love. And then, of course, you guys see me a lot of mornings at
I love
Reserva
that.
Coffee Shop,
Yep.
just giving some shout outs and showing some love and everything. But
Yeah,
again, it's just sharing my mood. And
I think it's
and
great.
I think it comes to like, and I mentioned it in another show where, I just, I don't know. I just want the world to know, and that how great things are. And if you're not having a great day, I know that you may not, but maybe, something I say may put that smile on your face, or see things in a different
Absolutely.
way, and just share that love and joy with everybody. And that's what it's all
Yeah.
about. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also like going through this like journey of like who am I in different spaces as well, right? Like because I think that, what I mean by that is not that I'm not authentic and you're not getting the real Shannon. You really are. Um, but whatever is put on social media, it is in the world forever. It doesn't go away. And so
mhm.
while at school, people know that I share freely. People, my personal friends, ask me for something, you get it. It's not like I'm nervous for that. I'm very proud of what I do in the classroom, right? Um, but but who do I want to be as Shannon on Twitter, right? And who do I want to be as Shannon on Instagram? And um, I often think, is my stuff something new, or am I just I'm living the same kind of vein or journey of what's always been going on? I want to shake up the world of education, and I think that by being sparingly in my shares, and this isn't for everyone, because don't get me wrong, like if you stopped sharing, my heart would be so sad, Fonts, because I love all of the things that you share. It really does inspire me. Um, but like I said, I'm constantly questioning things. And so that's kind of where I'm at, right? Figuring out who am I and what does that look like for the rest of the world?
Oh my goodness. I think, I mean, we can all share with you what the way that we see you, through the lens
Sure.
that we see you. And, you're just an amazing person. And again, just I love how your refreshing honesty, how you are, and how you're sharing, and just really, you're putting yourself out there. Cause like you said, right now, all of this, it's out there for the world. It's not going to go away,
Forever.
and
Yeah.
it's out here forever. But I appreciate you sharing that here
Yeah,
with
for
me
sure.
tonight, with all of us tonight. So, the last question, just to kind of wrap things up here.
Yeah.
If you and I were to trade places, tell me one thing about yourself that I should know.
Mm.
I mean, I don't know if
Yeah.
it could be
Okay.
any deeper than what you just said.
I know. Here's the thing, like, my friend Georgina always talks about being raw, and I live by that idea as well. So, let's see. One thing that you have to know about me, I go 110%, or I don't go at all. And so you really have to be ready for what goes on inside this brain. It literally never stops. It's a constant barrage of questioning and processing and evaluating and dreaming and aspiring for more. And it's exhausting a lot of the time, but if we aren't going 110%, then what's the point? Granted, I have 110% or I have zero. So just be careful. Like there's no in between, and I'm something else I'm working on right now too. But that is what you get. It's fun up in here, you know.
That is awesome. Well, that's
What about
great.
you?
For me, it's just like that. I think that you and I coincide in a lot of things, and I think, I think maybe because of that, we came together for this conversation because, although we are, there are differences, very slight differences, and mainly a lot of the difference that I see is just really like I'm putting myself out there, and you not as much, but like you said, it's either 0 or 110%, and my brain is also the same way where it doesn't stop thinking. Like I want
Yeah,
to like what's next, and I think, and we're having that conversation with Bonnie when she was on the show too. It's
yeah,
I was talking to my wife the other day and I said, "Oh my gosh, just finished the first year of school. We're the expensive paper club collectors." So
yeah,
Bonnie and Rick, if you're listening, that's a shout out to y'all. So I was like, man, I just finished my first year and I was like, I've got 3 more to go. And I told my wife, I need to start thinking what I'm going to be doing next. Like
yeah,
okay, what paper am I going after? So it's like I'm always trying to think and staying ahead and preparing, and so that's just what it is. So I think you and I are very similar in that aspect where it's really there it's very little over here and it's like 110
yeah,
going on all the time. And even a couple of days ago too, I was dreaming of designing, and I was like, do. I was like, oh my goodness, like this
yeah.
is,
Straight up.
but that's the way it goes. It's just,
Hmm.
I think it's also part of the exercising creativity. It just comes in waves and it just hits you. And when it hits you, hey, you know what, let's do it. Let's create. Let's, got those ideas, write them down or contact people and say, hey, I've got this idea, yay or nay. Let's take a risk. Let's see what
Yeah,
happens. So yeah, definitely.
I love it.
Awesome. I love it. Well, Shannon, thank you so much for being here,
Thank
my
you.
friend. I've loved this opportunity to really just sit down and have a great one on one conversation with you. And
Yeah,
for our audience members that are here, so supportive, everybody here. Yeah, who said that? Very expensive hobby.
yeah.
Yeah, Bonnie knows what's up with that.
You
And then,
guys are
oh, I
rocking
love
it.
this, Shannon. Love that creativity and dreams leads to love. There you
Yeah,
go. So yeah, so thank you so much.
yeah,
Again, Shannon, you are a wonderful friend. Thank you so much for your refreshing honesty. Thank you so much for what you're doing for the world of education. And I'm one of those that I'm going to talk you up because I've seen you through my lens as a wonderful friend, as a wonderful creator, as a wonderful leader in the education community. And I just want to let you know that you are definitely making waves in the education community. That although you may not think you really are. And I applaud you for the work that you do. And of course, with the 3CCs podcast, with your own personal creative journey, and with many of the other projects that are to come. It's only going to be awesome. So thank you so much for
yeah.
sharing your passion, connecting here with us, connecting others.
Sure.
And that's what my ed tech life is all about. Just
Love
connecting
it.
educators, creators, one show at a time, and just
Right.
really getting to know you. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, audience members, everybody watching, listening. Thank you so much for
Thank
making this
you.
show what it is today. Today we had a special evening. Show number 60. I got to share it with my friend Shannon. Show us some love, give us a like, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out our website at myedtech.life. Check out the rest of our episodes. And we will be here this Saturday, again, Saturday morning, 9 a.m. We are going to be having a code breaker of a time. All right. So it's going to be exciting because we've got Brian is joining us from Codebreaker. And that too is going to be just a conversation that'll definitely be just amazing, motivational. And like Shannon said, they just had their Power Up conference or summit. And so it's just going to be something that is amazing. So tune in
Yes.
Saturday morning. We look forward to seeing you. And again, my friends, until next time, stay techy.